my mom said. You're a man now. When I turned 15 and made me pay rent with my part-time job. Meanwhile, her unemployed boyfriend lounged all day. Years later, I bought the house they still lived in, and gave them a 30-day notice. You ever have one of those birthdays where you're like, oh cool, I'm finally turning 15, maybe I'll get a cake or, I don't know, a hoodie or something. And instead your mom looks you dead in the face and goes, you're a man now. Time to start paying rent. Yeah. That was me. 15 years old, working after school at this busted gas station down the road, making just enough to buy myself frozen burritos and maybe a second-hand pair of shoes every couple months, and suddenly I'm expected to fork over a chunk of that to help cover bills. While her boyfriend, let me tell you about this dude, literally sat on the couch for hours playing Call of Duty and looking for jobs online. And by looking I mean maybe clicking Craigslist once a week and then watching YouTube for the next 6 hours. This guy, let's call him Rick, even though that's not his name, but he gives off peak Rick energy, had no job, no car, no license, and apparently zero spine. But hey, he could roll a joint real fast and quote Fast and Furious movies like it was a personality trait, so my mom treated him like royalty. Meanwhile, I'd get yelled at if I left a cup in the sink or forgot to take out the trash before work. And if I ever complained, it was always the same speech. You live here, don't you? It's time you contribute like a real man. Rick's just going through a hard time, be respectful. Respectful? Man, Rick once ate the last of my food, like food I paid for, and when I said something, he smirked and said, "What, you gonna evict me, little man?" I swear, I had to physically leave the house and go scream behind the shed just to not lose it. You think I'm exaggerating? Nah. My mom would literally serve him a plate before me at dinner. He's older, he needs the calories. I was 15, burning through my shoes just to get to work and back, and this grown adult man-child was getting treated like a king while I was treated like a moody tenant. And don't get me started on the gas bill, somehow, everything was my fault. You're always on that Xbox, she'd say, even though Rick was the one using it 90% of the time. But whatever. I kept my head down. I kept working. I kept stacking. And I started taking mental notes. Like I may have been the kid in the house, but I was the only one acting like a functioning adult. And somewhere in that mess, something just flipped inside me. I realized no one was coming to save me. Not my mom. Definitely not Rick. So I decided, screw it, I'll save myself. And yo, you wanna know the wildest part? I didn't even hate my mom back then. Like yeah, I resented her obviously, but it wasn't some cartoon villain energy. It was more like this numb confusion. Like, I kept thinking, what did I do to end up the third-class citizen in my own damn house? You ever feel like a background character in someone else's sitcom? That was me. I'd come home from work, shoes soaked in slush, fingers stiff from bagging ice or stocking shelves, and there they were, my mom and Rick on the couch, laughing at some dumb rom-com they've seen 6 times already, her with her feet on his lap like he's some war hero back from battle. Meanwhile, if I so much as sighed too loud, she'd pause the movie and go, "What's with the attitude?" Like, sorry for breathing too hard, I'll go pay the electric bill in silence. And the hypocrisy? Off the freaking charts. She'd always say, "This house isn't a hotel, you know." Like I was freeloading or something, while Rick had literally not bought toilet paper in 3 years. I once caught him using my deodorant. No shame. Just looked me dead in the eye and went, "Relax, we're family." Bro, if we're family, then I'm adopting myself out. And don't even get me started on holidays. Christmas? I got socks and a lecture about responsibility. Rick got a $150 gift card and a "Thank you for being here." For what? Breathing through his mouth and finishing all my cereal? I tried calling her out once. I remember it like it just happened. I said, "Why is it always me doing everything and Rick doing nothing?" She blinked, looked at me like I had 3 heads, and said, "Because you're dependable. He's still finding himself." I was 15. 15. I wasn't trying to find myself. I was trying to find enough change in my locker to eat lunch that day. But I guess being the dependable one just meant I could be guilted into doing whatever while Rick rewatched Breaking Bad for the 5th time and pretended it was research. And what's messed up is how normal it all started to feel. Like when you grow up with this kind of setup, you stop asking, "Is this okay?" and start asking, "How do I survive it without losing my mind?" You train yourself not to expect fairness. Not to expect anything, honestly. You become invisible, but not in the cool superhero way. More like the, "if I died in my room no one would notice for a week" kind of way. And when I realized that, That was when something in my brain just quietly snapped. Like, no tears, no drama, just this quiet inner voice that went, okay. So this is what the world is. Cool. Time to play the long game. Growing up in that house was like living in one long, unpaid internship for a family that didn't even like me. I swear, I think my mom only remembered I existed when she needed someone to drag the trash out or explain how to use the printer again. And before anyone asks, no, it wasn't always like that. Back when I was a kid, before Rick the human throw pillow showed up, my mom and I actually had something close to a real bond. We'd watch movies together, she'd help with school stuff, make those weird tuna casseroles she thought I loved, and yeah, I'd pretend to like em because that's what you do when you're a kid and you want your mom to be happy. But then, somewhere around 12 or 13, everything shifted. Not all at once, it was slow, like water damage. You don't see it until one day the wall caves in. It started with her being too tired to hang out after work. Then Rick started showing up. Just for dinner. Like he was a freaking stray cat that wandered in. Next thing I know, he's got a drawer, then a whole dresser, and then boom, his name's on the Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, mine was practically erased from the door. I went from being her son to being a side character in her new love story. And no one told me my role changed. I was just expected to roll with it. Be grateful she wasn't kicking me out. At 14 I was working weekends at a corner store that smelled like old pickles and broken dreams, stocking shelves and getting yelled at by people who thought cashier meant punching bag. I'd hand over my paychecks like it was normal. My mom said, "Rent's not optional anymore. You're a man now." A man? Bruh, I was still figuring out how to talk to girls without sounding like a malfunctioning toaster. Meanwhile, Rick, 38, jobless, and somehow allergic to effort, got to chill at home watching TV, eating all the good snacks, and playing armchair philosopher. The guy once told me, dead serious, that working is for suckers and the real game is letting the universe provide. The universe, huh? Weird how the universe always provided through my freaking wallet. I remember asking, how come I'm paying rent and Rick isn't? And my mom hit me with, because you live here and your family. Rick's going through a hard time. Right. A hard time that apparently lasted 6 years and counting. I wasn't allowed to have a hard time. I wasn't allowed to be a kid. I had to earn my right to exist in a house I didn't even feel welcome in. And yeah, I pushed back. Not in some heroic teenage rebellion way. I was tired, broke, and hungry half the time. But I'd make little comments. Like one time I said, "Guess I'll just put provider on my resume next to high school sophomore." My mom didn't laugh. Rick didn't get it. I got grounded for disrespect. Cool. Real cool. The kicker? I still tried. Still did the dishes. Still showed up. Still held out this tiny dumb hope that maybe one day they'd notice, say thanks, treat me like I mattered. But nope. Instead, I learned that in that house, love was conditional, and respect was a currency I couldn't afford. So I stopped chasing it. I started stacking plans instead. Quiet ones. Strategic ones. Because if there's one thing you learn real quick when no one's looking out for you, it's how to look out for yourself. And trust me, I was taking notes the whole time. And the worst part? I literally had to set an alarm for 6 a.m. just to grab breakfast before Rick devoured all the eggs. Dude genuinely believed. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, especially when you don't work. I swear, back then I didn't feel like someone's kid. I felt like some budget Bear Grylls, trying to survive in my own house. The jungle? That was the kitchen, and every morning was a mission to avoid pissing off Mom or stepping on Rick's fragile ego. He had this favorite saying, "Success isn't about money, it's about your vibrations." Bro. I'm 15. I'm studying geometry, working part-time, sleeping in a room with no door, and you're talking about vibrations? One morning I snapped and told him, "Maybe your vibrations can get you a damn job interview." Mom looked at me like I just burned down the house. She went full banshee, yelling about how disrespectful I was, how Rick was the only one who truly appreciated her. Sure, especially her fridge and my paycheck. And don't get it twisted, I wasn't allowed to keep any of my money. Every cent I made went straight to her, because apparently we were all in this together. Nah. That was her way of saying, pay up or get out. I was just a kid, man. 15 years old. While other kids in school were arguing over who Emma was gonna kiss at the party, or when they'd get their first car, I was over here trying not to collapse from exhaustion or starve to death cause the fridge only had ketchup and spoiled milk left. But I never let them see me sweat. I was the man of the house. According to Mom, whatever the hell that meant. Don't complain. Don't slack. Just shut up and pay rent. Cool. If that's what you want, fine. I'll play your game. But not the way you expected. Every insult, every moment Mom defended Rick instead of me, every time she pretended not to notice I was burning out, I remembered it all. Even when my teacher called her once and said I was falling asleep in class and probably working too much, Mom just shrugged and said, "Well, he's a man now." Right. A man with no rights, no freedom, but plenty of bills and lectures. The craziest thing? To outsiders we looked normal. Mom smiled in public, Rick waved to the neighbors, I stayed quiet. But behind the walls, it was straight up rot. And after a while, I just accepted it. Not agreed with it, just accepted it like you accept rain when you've got no umbrella. But I'm not the stand there and get wet type. I started planning. Not revenge, survival. I began reading, watching videos on finance, downloading books on investing and real estate. While Rick was busy watching How to Become a Millionaire in 3 Days on YouTube, I was learning how not to be the guy who gets stuck paying rent to his mom while her boyfriend lives free. I was 15, paying bills and feeding a freeloader. When else would I start planning how to flip the entire game? By 17, I was running on fumes and Monster Energy. Still working, still paying rent, still dodging Rick's spiritual lectures like they were landmines. I remember coming home once after pulling a double shift and hearing, "You know, your aura's all messed up, man. You gotta align your chakras." My eye twitched so hard I thought it detached. I dropped my bag, looked this dude dead in the face and said, "Maybe your aura can align with a job application." "Mom?" She gasped like I'd slapped the Pope. "You don't talk to him like that. He's trying to guide you spiritually." "Lady, I'm trying not to fall asleep on the bus and get robbed. And this guy's out here meditating on my ing beanbag chair." So yeah, I started stacking side gigs, walking dogs, fixing phones, even flipping garage sale crap online. Anything I could get my hands on. I didn't party, didn't go on dates, didn't even buy new shoes unless mine were bleeding. Rick had more sneakers than me and didn't even leave the house. And every time I brought up saving money or needing a break, Mom hit me with, "That's life, sweetie. Grow up." Sure, Mom. Except I wasn't living life. I was living your bills. Rick's Netflix? My account. Her gas tank? My debit card. Toothpaste? Yeah, guess who bought it? And somehow, I was still the one being told I was moody and ungrateful. Teachers said I was quiet. I wasn't quiet, I was just exhausted. I'd sit in class watching other kids scroll TikTok while I was Googling how to open a Roth IRA as a teenager. One day in senior year, this girl in class laughed at my beat-up shoes and said, "You look like you live in a basement." I didn't even flinch. I just said, "Nah, basements have peace and insulation. I live in hell with a couch." That shut her up. I started spending every free second learning how to get out. Real estate YouTubers, finance subreddits, those boring-ass books about equity and credit scores, I ate that up like it was oxygen. I got myself a student credit card, paid it off like clockwork, never missed a damn payment. Rick once said, "Credit's a scam, man. The real currency is energy." I said, "Cool. Try paying the electric bill with vibes." He got real quiet after that. At 18, I graduated. No party. No congratulations. Just a cold, "Don't forget rent's due Friday." I nodded, smiled, and said, "Oh, I won't. But it'll be my last one." That part caught them off guard. Rick actually sat up straight. "What do you mean?" Mom looked nervous. I just said, "You'll see," and walked out. Truth was, I had already signed a lease for a tiny studio across town. Ugly carpets, paper-thin walls, smelled like regret and instant ramen. But it was mine. Nobody else's energy, nobody else's bills. Just me and silence. And freedom. I'd never slept so hard in my life. And from that point on, the real plan kicked in. I didn't fully grasp how warped my definition of normal was until I started talking to other people my age and realized none of them were budgeting their mom's boyfriend's vape juice into their monthly expenses. Like, I thought it was standard practice to Venmo your mom $20 because quick spiritual snacks were on sale. I'm not kidding. This man bought kale chips and oat milk and acted like he was a pioneer of clean eating while microwaving frozen corn dogs when nobody was watching. And the thing that really started grinding my gears? The way they both acted like I owed them. Like me being under their roof, while also paying for half the utilities, was some grand act of generosity on their part. My mom once said, You wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for me. When I asked her to please stop using my toothbrush for her hair dye experiments. Like, what even is that logic? Congrats on basic biology, I guess? Meanwhile, Rick kept pulling these fake deep guru moments like he was some TikTok philosopher. One night, I caught him sitting in the dark, staring at a candle like he was summoning ancient knowledge, and he just goes, "You know, energy doesn't lie. People do." And I blinked and said, "Cool, maybe the energy could help with the rent this month." He didn't like that one. Mom gave me this whole guilt trip after saying I had a bad attitude and negative vibes. So I snapped a little. I was like, "You let a guy who sells mushroom necklaces on Etsy tell me how to live, while I'm out here paying for your phone plan." And yeah, maybe I could have said it nicer, but I was tired, man. Tired of feeling like I was some unwanted tenant in my own family. It got to the point where I started hiding snacks in my backpack because Rick kept cleansing the fridge, which basically meant throwing out anything that didn't have chia seeds. I remember sitting at work one night, eating dry cereal from a Ziploc bag while watching my manager yell at a trainee, and I just thought, this can't be it. This cannot be my whole life. Like, sure, I wasn't living in a cardboard box, but emotionally? Spiritually? I was squatting in someone else's bad decisions. So I started planning. Quietly. Patiently. I didn't tell anyone, not even my one friend who always joked about kidnapping me from that place. I just started squirreling away cash, applying to every job that wasn't total garbage, and pretending everything was fine while I was one minor inconvenience away from snapping like a breadstick. And when my first paycheck from that side gig finally cleared, I didn't buy shoes or go out or treat myself. I put it in a high-yield savings account like the nerdiest revenge plot in history. And let me tell you, nothing feels more powerful than seeing triple digits in your own account when everyone else treats you like you're just the background character in their mess. That's when the gears really started turning. I wasn't gonna yell. I wasn't gonna fight. I was gonna outgrow them so hard they'd have to Google me to keep up. So I kept playing the part. Smiling when I had to, nodding along when Rick rambled about quantum healing, or whatever nonsense he scraped off a podcast made in someone's van. I kept my head down at dinner, even when he'd throw little digs like, "Man, back in my day, 20-year-olds already had their own place." Yeah, Rick. Back in your day, rent wasn't half a paycheck and avocado toast didn't exist, but go off, guru. I'd just sit there chewing dry chicken breast and pretending I wasn't calculating every single step I needed to get out. And my mom? She kept doing that thing where she acted confused whenever I seemed distant. Like, "Why are you being so cold lately?" "Lady, maybe because I woke up last week and my bed was gone, replaced by a freaking air mattress because your boyfriend's nephew needed a place to crash. Just for a few days." Spoiler, that kid stayed for 3 months and never once washed a dish. I started calling him the couch mole in my head because he blended into the furniture and grew stronger the longer he stayed. It was actually impressive. But nobody said anything. They just expected me to adapt. Adjust. Accept less and act grateful. Rick once said, "You gotta stop resisting the flow." After he, accidentally, used my last protein bar to feed a raccoon he thought was his spirit animal. I literally stood there like, "Are you serious right now?" And he just smiled like some cartoon monk and walked away humming to his crystals or whatever. It was unreal. At some point I stopped feeling mad and just started documenting everything like I was building a court case. Not for legal stuff, just for the peace of knowing I wasn't crazy. I screenshotted texts, saved receipts, wrote things down in notes, with timestamps like I was the world's most bitter detective. And the wildest part? They still thought they had me cornered. They still acted like I was too soft, too polite, in my head, to ever push back. Rick told my mom once, loud enough for me to hear. "He's just stuck. Lacks drive. Kids these days, man." And my mom, instead of defending me, just nodded and sighed like I was some broken Wi-Fi router. And yeah, that one stung. But instead of blowing up, I smiled. Said nothing. Just kept saving. Kept grinding. Kept playing the dumb, harmless role they cast me in. Because they didn't know. They had no idea I was already halfway out, already planning the exact hour I'd dip, already organizing my files and wrapping up loose ends and prepping a little gift for them they wouldn't forget. They thought I was quiet because I was weak. Nah. I was quiet because I was busy. The day I finally walked out, it wasn't some dramatic movie scene with thunder and yelling and broken plates. Nope. It was Tuesday. Middle of the day. Overcast, boring, smelled like someone burnt eggs in the kitchen, which, surprise, Rick did. I remember just sitting there at the counter, sipping cold coffee, thinking, alright, let's end the sitcom. I had everything packed in my trunk already. The important stuff, anyway. Laptop, hard drive, birth certificate, sneakers, the basics of starting a new life. And I waited. I waited until they were both home because I wanted them to see it. Not just the leaving, but the clarity. The calm. I didn't want them to spin some story later about me being unstable or emotional. I wanted to look Rick straight in his third eye energy reading soul and say, hey man, you were right about one thing, I did lack drive. But I got it now. Thanks for the motivation. Dude blinked like I hit him with a riddle. Then my mom looked up from her phone like I just told her her favorite celebrity died. What are you talking about? She asked. And I swear to you, I almost laughed. I pulled out a little folder, printed screenshots, notes, copies of emails, dates, times, petty stuff I'd collected like Pokemon. This is everything you overlooked while pretending I was invisible, I said. She didn't move. Didn't even blink. Just stared like the Wi-Fi cut out, and she couldn't reload the conversation. I'm moving out. I've already signed a lease. You won't have to worry about me being in the way anymore, I added. And Rick? Man had the nerve to go. You don't need to be so dramatic, bro. I looked at him, dead serious, and said, coming from the guy who cried because a crow wouldn't land on his shoulder during a spiritual moment. Save the advice. He muttered something about me needing therapy. I told him. Already booked. Right after I stopped taking life tips from a man who thought kombucha was a personality. And then I turned to my mom. I gave her one last chance. You could have stood up for me. Just once. Instead, you chose vibes and sage smoke over your own kid. I hope that works out for you. She didn't say anything. Not sorry. Not confused. Just blank. Like she couldn't process that I actually meant it. And that silence? That was the loudest part of the whole thing. I walked out without slamming the door. No yelling. No guilt trip. Just done. And that was the moment I realized something wild. Sometimes the cleanest break isn't explosive. It's quiet. It's you finally choosing yourself after everyone else made you feel optional. I didn't need closure. I didn't need them to understand. I just needed out. You ever hear that quote? Success is the best revenge. Sounds cheesy, right? Like something you'd see printed on a $6 mug in the clearance bin at TJ Maxx. But weirdly, it stuck with me. After I walked out, I didn't crash, spiral, or turn into some bitter ghost of myself. Nah. I got busy. I found this little studio apartment that looked like a shoebox but felt like freedom. You know that first morning when you wake up alone in your own space and realize nobody's gonna ask you where you're going, what you're doing, or why you're not smiling more? Yeah. That hit hard. I started cooking real food again, not that frozen microwave sadness I used to survive on. I even joined this small gym down the block and told the guy at the front desk I wanted to unbecome a guy who got cheated on. He laughed, handed me a guest pass, and said, we've had worse reasons. Real talk though, it wasn't even about looking better. It was about feeling like someone who could look himself in the mirror again without hearing her voice in the back of his head saying, you're just overthinking things. I wasn't. I was right the whole freaking time. And that quiet validation? That healed me more than anything. One time a mutual friend messaged me, you know, one of those fence sitters who disappears when things get uncomfortable, and she goes, so, I heard what happened. Are you okay? I told her. Define okay. I'm broke, but I sleep great. And she laughed, but also, you could feel the pause behind her typing bubbles. People started showing up out of nowhere like I was the underdog story they missed the first half of. I kept it polite, but I wasn't about to play the sympathy card. I didn't want anyone's pity. I wanted peace. One night, a different friend, someone who did stick around, asked me, what would you say to her if she showed up right now? And I thought about it. I really did. And all I could come up with was, nothing. Like, not even a cold stare or some epic final line. Just silence. 'Cause when someone's lied to you so well, for so long, it doesn't matter what they say anymore. What matters is you finally stopped listening. Funny part? I ran into Rick like 3 months later at a gas station. He had a black eye. I didn't ask. He tried to spark some convo about the universe testing us, or whatever vague mess he's always preaching, and I just nodded, grabbed my receipt, and said, guess the universe ran out of patience, huh? He didn't follow me. Didn't say bye. Just stood there holding his overpriced protein shake like he saw a ghost. Maybe he did. 'Cause the version of me he knew, that guy's gone. And what's left is someone who finally learned how to leave without needing anyone else to understand why. Time passed in this weird stretchy way, like some days felt 5 minutes long and others felt like a year. I wasn't chasing closure anymore. I kinda figured out that closure is a made-up word people use when they want to feel better about not getting an apology. I didn't need one. What I did need was space to just exist without being constantly second-guessed, talked down to, or lied to with that fake soft voice she used when she was about to gaslight the life out of me. And let me tell you, once you've been lied to with a smile enough times, you start to flinch at kindness. Wild how that works. I got quieter, not because I was broken or mopey or whatever, but because peace felt louder than trying to explain myself to people who were already committed to misunderstanding me. Some folks didn't get it. You should talk it out, they said. You'll regret cutting people off like that. And I'm like, regret what? Not playing the role of understanding doormat till I lose every ounce of self-respect I've got left. Yeah, I'll take my chances. There was this one moment that kind of stamped itself in my head. I was grabbing coffee at this little spot I'd never been to before, just a random Tuesday, and the barista called me man. In that friendly way, not the fake retail customer service voice. Just casual. What's up, man? And I don't know why, but I nearly choked up. That's how starved I'd been for basic, no strings attached respect. Isn't that messed up? Like, bro just asked me if I wanted oat milk and suddenly I'm internally spiraling like, is this what being treated like a person feels like? Anyway, I laughed it off, tipped more than I should have, and told myself, if you cry over oat milk, we're gonna have to talk, buddy. But that's the thing. Healing doesn't come in some big cinematic moment where fireworks go off and everyone claps because you found yourself. It's more like realizing no one's questioning your decisions anymore. No one's making you feel like you owe them explanations for existing the way you do. It's you walking past the mirror and not analyzing your own face like you're on trial. It's you sleeping like a rock and not waking up with your heart doing backflips because you feel like something's off. I remember this one guy from the old friend group. He hit me up after months of radio silence with a text that said, "Yo bro, you disappeared." So I replied, "Nah man, I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected." Simple. Clean. No drama. He didn't answer. And I didn't lose sleep over it. Guess I outgrew the whole idea that loyalty means sticking around even when the room's on fire and everyone's pretending it's a sauna. You want to know something? There's power in being the one who walks away without the need to explain why. Power in becoming someone they whisper about like, damn, he really just bounced and never looked back. And no, it's not about being cold or petty. It's about finally realizing your worth isn't up for debate. Not anymore. Not ever again. So here's the part nobody claps for. The part where it's just you, your space, your silence, and this weird unfamiliar piece that doesn't scream for attention but hums real loud when it's finally yours. I didn't get some Hollywood ending, no big "I told you so" moment. No one fell to their knees apologizing. What I got was better. I got distance. I got nights where my heart didn't race for no reason. I got mornings where I didn't open my eyes already bracing for a lie, a fight, or that tight feeling in your chest when you know someone's smiling at you with a mouth full of fake. And yeah, at first, it was awkward. Like, who even am I when I'm not constantly defending myself? You ever sit on your couch and suddenly realize, wait, nobody's mad at me today, what do I do with that? Wild, right? But slowly, I leaned into it. I stopped explaining myself to people who didn't deserve the inside view. I stopped chasing closure from folks who were allergic to accountability. And I swear, the day I realized I didn't owe anyone access to my peace, that was the day my spine got straighter. Literally felt it. One of her friends, the loud one with the permanent resting judge face, DM'd me out of nowhere like, "I heard what happened, kinda shocked you just dipped." So I hit her with, "If you gotta hear what happened instead of living it, then maybe it wasn't about you." Never heard back. Shocker. And honestly, I wasn't bitter. I was just done. Like, bro, I didn't burn bridges. I just stopped extending mine to people who brought gasoline instead of support. Life didn't get magically perfect after that. I still had days where my brain tried to replay everything and ask dumb stuff like, did I overreact? But I trained myself to answer with, nah, you just finally reacted correctly. And no, I didn't turn into some Zen monk or Instagram life coach or whatever. I still mess up, I still overthink, I still Google weird symptoms at 2 a.m. But now I do it with boundaries. Now I know that peace isn't this loud, glowing trophy. It's the quiet decision to never beg for the bare minimum again. It's telling yourself, you're not crazy, you just finally got tired. So if you're reading this hoping for a big flashy revenge arc or some jaw-dropping karma moment, sorry, it's not that kind of story. But if you wanted to know what it looks like to survive a slow betrayal, to gather your pride from the floor, stitch it back together with a little bit of spite and a whole lot of self-respect, and then walk out without slamming the door, then yeah, that's exactly what this was. And if someone asks how I'm doing now, I just smile and say, quiet. Not because nothing's happening, but because nothing's wrong anymore. And for me, that's more than enough.